How are you, Mike?
Hey, buddy, look what I found in my hat closet in
Well,
honor of you.
Coeur d'Alene, Ironman. That's awesome, buddy. Thank you very much for hunting that one out.
I know. My wife keeps saying to me, "What the hell are you gonna do with all those hats?"
Do you do you collect every one from every event that you call?
I do. As a matter of fact, last year when I announced the 12 Ironmans I was going to announce, I'd go the New Zealand hat, the Australia hat. I just put all these different hats on, and some of my friends would go, "Dude, you still got those hats? I do not believe you got all the hats." I go, "Yeah, I do."
Wow. So do you have them just put in boxes? Do you have them on display? How do you have them even?
I have some just put away in the garage in boxes, older ones, but the ones I rotate and wear a lot, they're just in a hat closet in the laundry room.
Wow, I bet you have hundreds of those things, man. That's cool though. It's good that you collect all of that.
Yeah, why not? Sometimes though, I think I shouldn't come home from a race with Ironman gear because I got so much of it, I can't wear it all.
Yeah, exactly. Well, it's always there as a memory, isn't it? Some people have photographs. I guess you got photographs and memorabilia.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, well, that's awesome. Well, thank you very much for coming on here, Mike. I know we've tried a couple of times going back and forth. It hasn't gone through, but all happens for a reason, and they leave the best to last.
Yeah. There you go. That's a good analogy. Is she going to be on the split screen with us like last time or no?
No. It's just going to be me and yourself,
Oh,
my
okay.
man. Yeah, she's like the millennial that helps me with all of these things, which is over my head. I know how to work email and work documents, and that's about it.
Yeah, I've got my son for that. Thank goodness.
Yeah,
Jeez.
exactly. Anyway, brother, let's get straight into this, Mike.
You got it.
One of like obviously with my own story of getting ready for Ironman events over the past few couple of years. I read so many books. I'm the kind of person that when I go into something, I want to obsess over it, and I will not delve into anything else. So if I'm going mountain biking, I'm all mountain biking. If I'm doing bodybuilding, I'm all bodybuilding. And when I started getting into Ironman triathlon, I thought, okay, this is it. And now I wouldn't even pick up a fitness magazine. It'd all be triathlon magazines and books because I wanted to obsess over something like that. Now I needed to plug myself into some sort of social pipeline. And your name is just in every single one of these books where people really, really, of course they want to finish an Ironman, maybe there's some sort of purpose that they need to fulfill. But just as important to them is to have Mike Reilly say, you are an Ironman. That must put a lot of pressure on your plate, but at the same time, it must be pretty fulfilling, huh?
It is. It's Chris, over the last probably 5 to 7 years is when it's come to fruition more than I ever even imagined. People have always said, "Thank you very much for calling me an Ironman. I can't wait till you do it." On and on. Now it's become, I'm not going to that race. Mike Reilly's not going to be there. I go, what do you mean you can't don't do that? Schedule is a schedule. You've got to do it according to your life, not somebody else's. Or I do have to go to the bathroom once in a while. So if I'm not on the microphone when somebody comes in, I hear about it, and it's taken a life of its own. Is it Mike Reilly's life or what I've done? Possibly, but it's taken its own life on. And now people say that, it's the voice they want to hear. They want to hear my voice. It's not right because if somebody else's voice, and there's a lot of other Ironman announcers throughout the world I love and adore and work with, and I think they got fantastic voices, but I think it's because they've just been listening to mine on broadcasts or whatever since 1989, and that's the guy. It's like if you're playing a Dodger game and you didn't get a home run called by Vin Scully, it's like it didn't happen. So it's taken a life on of its own, that's for sure.
Yeah, and I think it's like I said, because I read about it in so many books, and obviously one of the most popular stories out there is Iron War, and you read about it in there, and people would think, I'm sure that, okay, if you were announcing these legends, of course, you want to feel like a legend as well, even though if you're not one being announced by you. So, when I was reading these books, I thought, wow, I hope Mike is going to be at my event. And then lo and behold, there you were in Coeur d'Alene, and you announced me as Ironman, and that is extremely fulfilling. You know, that's something that you can really put in your back pocket. But I'm sure at one time when Ironman was, you know, in his much, much smaller stages, and it's still a very young sport, that you were able to announce every event. But now there's so many, you just can't be at all of them. So
I just can't.
How many a year are you attending to call, Mike?
It'll range between well, I'll do 11 full distance Ironmans this year. Last year I did 12. It's just the way the schedule worked out. Next year it'll be the same. So, you know, 10, 11, 12 full distance Ironmans. I'll do 1 or 2 70.3s if it's convenient, or if it's like Oceanside, because I live in San Diego, so I can do that one easy enough. So physically, that's about all I can get done, because, you know, they're on top of each other. Last year I did, unbeknownst to me, when I committed to go back to Ironman Australia, and I've done that a few times, I went to my calendar, which is up on my wall here, and I wrote Ironman Australia. Then I looked at and I go, are you kidding me, Mike? The weekend before was Texas. The weekend after was Santa Rosa. It was 3 in a row. My first thought was, oh my God, how am I going to explain to my wife I just committed to 3 in a row? You know, and then I'm going, I'm not 35 anymore. My voice, geez, I got to have some time to recover. But we pulled it off and we did it. But I'll never do that again.
That was a tough one. Yeah.
There's a lot of Ironmans all over the world, and like I said, there's other great people to do it. But usually I go and do the first ones. If it's like Ireland's, I'll be leaving there for there. That's a first time Ironman, so I'll go and be at that one. Next year there's a couple of new ones coming in, so I'll go to those. And then, you know, the regulars like Lake Placid in Wisconsin, and obviously Kona, I'll never miss those.
Yeah, for sure. And I'm sure there's a lot of people here thinking that are businessmen that are traveling, and they'd say, God, well, that's okay. It's Texas and then Australia, and you know, it's not that bad. However, what a lot of people don't know is the amount of homework that you've got to put in beforehand. Can you tell us a little bit about, you know, what you do in regards to your research of the people that are coming across that finish line?
Oh, if I showed you what I've got ready to go for Ireland, you know, obviously the pros, it's a male and female professional race. 2 spots are available for Kona for those pros to be able to go to Kona. And 2-time Olympian Alistair Brownlee's going. You know, he's never done an Ironman, and he's one of the fastest guys in the sport. So I'm preparing that way. I take a look at all the Ironmans and read the database. I go through the names just to become familiar. If I see one that I'm stuck on, I'll send an email to the athlete and go, dude, how do you pronounce your last name? And you know, oh my God, thanks for asking. And I'll do that. And I look at their stories. I don't memorize it all, but when it comes up on race day on the computer, I've read it already. Oh yeah, I remember that. That woman went through this, and yeah, you know. Then there's the welcome ceremony in front of all the athletes and family and friends, and you know, preparing to MC that. So it's funny. I put it in my book when in the acknowledgments, I mentioned the names of all the announcers I'd worked with and throughout the years, and at the very end of it, I put what I've always lived by: the 5 Ps. Proper planning prevents poor performance. I mean, that's what you do when you get into something, because we know we don't want to perform badly. And when I say something, I'm live. I can't, it's not a do-over on TV or let's do another take. Ain't no takes. It's like they all heard me. So I've got to kind of be on your game. And I make mistakes. I laugh at myself over the microphone. And, oh, my God, I don't believe I said they laugh at me, because I can't take yourself too seriously in it. But you got to be prepared. You got to. And then, you know what else it does, Kris? I become comfortable. I go, I can't wait to get. I'm prepared well for Ireland. Even on some of the hard names, I go, okay, I think I've got those. So you feel better about yourself, and you're going to perform better. It's very simple.
Yeah,
that's just
exactly.
what happens.
It's not stressful last minute because you
Yes.
haven't prepared. But good segue anyway into your book, Mike, that I have right here that I've read 1.5 times right now. The reason why I've read it 1.5 times is because we all take various things for granted, whether it be our health, whether it be our loved ones, surroundings, our environment. We all do that. And I think a lot of the time when we become very comfortable in our environment, we look at what we don't have. We complain over the littlest things, and we become too comfortable. Instead of like what Ironman does, it allows us to become comfortable getting uncomfortable. And it gives us purpose. And when you look at read some of the amazing, inspiring stories that you've put in this book, Mike, it really does humble you. And the way that you've translated it into something that is so inspiring within itself, it's very commendable. Only you have these stories. So I think it would have been rude for you not to put it into a book as you have. And when I look at some of those stories, I'm like, wow, because I know firsthand how hard it is to complete an Ironman if you're able-bodied, if you're healthy, if you have no issues. It is tough. I found that out, and now I have found it out that, it is an addictive sport. I'm sure you've heard that a million times, A lot of people cross that finish line, including myself, and go, wow, that was great, but I'll never do it again. And then only 4 weeks later, you're planning the next one. I guess it happens a lot of the time. But I keep looking back into the book and picking out a story. I won't look for one single story. I'll just pick any because it really inspires you again. It gives you purpose. Like, what made you choose these stories out of all of them yourselves, Mike?
I chose the stories that affected me the most. That I was inspired and motivated by the most. The hardest part, Kris, was leaving some great stories out of the book that I was affected and motivated by. But these, and I didn't want to try to teach lessons. I'm not a lesson, people don't want to be taught lessons. I just know that when you bring that lesson in yourself and make that decision, it's much stronger than somebody telling you what to do. That's just how it is. And so I wanted to tell stories that I saw, that I felt, that I know what a lot of the athletes went through because I was close to them. And some I wasn't as close to others, but they just affected me deep. And you're right. I felt I'd be selfish if I didn't share them and pass them on. Why keep all this? And I've told a lot of stories. When I go give talks and speeches, I'll tell 4 or 5 stories, and I'll have grown men in the room crying and women coming up and hugging me afterwards. And wow, that must have been pretty powerful. Well, teachers teach to learn. And when I speak, I'm talking to myself too, because we get complacent about things and get down, or life's tough. It's not the easiest thing in the world. So when I'm able to put stories like this together and have people like you tell me that you've gone through 1.5 times, that means everything to me, because I just know these stories are so good. And that's why I feel the book is universal, not just for us in the Ironman world, because there's people who can learn from this. They don't have to go 140.6 miles. They don't have to become an Ironman athlete. I'm not saying that to anybody. They can, just get off the couch and go walk around the block, for goodness sakes. And hopefully a book like this will prompt people to take a look at themselves in a different, positive way. That's all.
You've hit the nail on the head there.
Yeah, it's and the failure. We've all failed, and you're not a failure if you fail. You're a failure if you learn to, from that experience. If you don't learn from it, but people like Sarah and Scott Rigsby and Rudy Tulsa Garcia, all of them failed in a bad way, and they had their hopes so high, and they were, they didn't get to the finish line. I mean, there's nothing worse when you prepare for it. And but you get redemption. You get to come back. You stand up again and let me try it again. And they did that second time around.
Yeah, it's amazing. Like you said, you don't have to be into Ironman triathlon at all to be inspired by this book that is so universal. That you've got, because it's very easy for us to sit back and say, well, oh, woe me. Oh, it's difficult for me. I'm too unfit. I'm too old. There's millions of excuses out there that we choose upon. But when you read some of these stories, like, wow, I've got no excuse whatsoever. They've become so transparent with themselves, and you have as well, Mike, that you can't do anything but be completely transparent with yourself. And like you said, get off that couch, do that 5K, do that sprint, do the full Ironman. You know, it's there, which is so fulfilling, and it transpires into so many aspects of your life. If you hadn't found yourself disciplined, maybe at home or with your finances, with your relationships, this is something that Ironman definitely translates into. You know, you become much more scheduled. You get used to waking up at 4:30, 5 a.m. in the morning because you have to. And then it just becomes part of your clock, part of your habitat, you know, and it's your then new habits. What aspects of Ironman have had an impact on yourself, Mike?
What aspect of Ironman
has had the most positive impact on yourself?
Oh, I think what Ironman has done for me is make me realize I am the luckiest guy on the planet, and I don't say that in an ego type way. I get to be a part of people's lives, and I get to add a little bit to it, and make people, you know, what greater mission in life can we have to make somebody else's life happier, to help enhance their lives, to help them move forward, and just by the proclamation of those 4 words that you heard in Coeur d'Alene, it changes people's lives. It builds them up. I've had people, Kris, come up to me 12 years later, Mike, I can hear those words like it was yesterday. I know what song was playing. I know what inflection you had in your voice. You said congratulations before. You said great job. You're an Ironman for the rest of your life. You said to me, I mean, they remember everything I said because, you know, I switch around, say a lot of things, and I go, wow. Oh no, you don't understand. I have that for the rest of my life. So you know, that's what it's done for me. That aspect of being able to enhance someone else's life with your words, for goodness sakes. And sure, you can go on a motivational speaking tour and speak to a sales group of 2,000 people, and you know, they may take it away. 10 of them may take it away from you, but I know when I call 2,500 people across the finish line, they're all taking it away.
Yeah.
That's humbling.
Yeah, and I think because such strong bonds are shared through the suffering, you know, and you have to suffer. There's no way around it. There's no easy way around it. To cross that finish line, you're going through suffer. So I think the bond that they're sharing with you at the time is life-changing, and that's probably why it sticks with them. And, you know, it's something that you'll carry for the rest of your life. You'll wear that cap with pride, and you'll hang it up in the garage there, and you'll always remember that. So do you feel that with all the stories that you've shared in your book, Finding My Voice, Mike, allows you to be a happier person? Hadn't you have come across those stories? Because there may be some form of guilt if you're to feel shame or upset or anxiety or stress or depression. Would you say these stories uplift you as a person?
Absolutely, no doubt. Matter of fact, it's very hard for me to fathom these stories not in my life. If they were not in my life, I just wouldn't be the person I am today. I just wouldn't be. I've always been a positive person, and you know, I've never get down a lot. You know, so I'm always that type of person. But we can always go higher. You know, we can always reach higher. And so when we think we're at the top of the world, you know, and I even said this in my book, people like Hines Ward, MVP Super Bowl, sports board, he felt he needed to climb another mountain, and Ironman was it. He needed to go higher. He needed to have another pinnacle and mountain to climb. And I think that's what this has done for me personally. It's just giving me that mountain that just doesn't have a top, but I'm clawing for the top all the time, and not in a stressful way, but you know, all right, I can do that better. I'll do that better. You know, so it's just, and people, I had one woman write me who I've known for years, and she goes, Mike, I read your book. I knew, she'd been around a while. She goes, I knew about a lot of the stories that you wrote about. She had heard them before and things like that, but she goes, I never knew they could be so impactful with how you told them to me. And I said, wow, I didn't, I guess that's a compliment for writing, but she goes, no, you put them in a perspective that, you know what, you read this, you're going to be a different person. I never told anybody that. I never told her that, but that's what she told me. She goes, I'm a different person because of the words you put on the page. It says my words, but their stories. No, you don't understand. You were like sitting in the room with me when I was reading this dang thing.
Yeah,
so it was like you were in the room with me. So I that wasn't a goal of mine. I mean, I wanted to be first person, but I didn't think about sitting in the room with somebody when they're reading the book. They were feeling that way. So it came out. It came out much better than I thought it would, Kris.
Yeah, the book
Wow.
is absolutely fantastic. And I think the uniqueness about this is because everybody knows your voice. A lot of people are familiar with the voice, even if they're not. So we can hear your voice, even though I might be looking at reading it as opposed to listening to the audio version, which I believe you have coming out pretty soon. The audio?
Yeah, it's out now.
Oh, it's out now.
It's been out for a few weeks. Yeah.
Oh, fantastic. Okay. Well, without even listening to that, I felt that I had the audio version reading it, but you'd really put a very good visual perspective as well. So, what I was reading, I wasn't envisioning. And I think we all have something that is, that we believe provides some hardship. If you're in the bodybuilding community, we're all going to be thinking, oh my God, another boring, bland chicken and rice meal. But then you read one of these stories like, wow, I'm very privileged to eat that bland chicken and rice meal. I know where my next meal is coming from. I know I have food on my plate. Where until you actually listen and read some of those stories, it's very easy for you to take it for granted. And that's one of the reasons why I do like visiting every now and again. I've got a gym franchise in India. So I see people on the street with nothing that will never know what an Ironman is, that will never see the inside of the gym. And so it really puts things into perspective. And I feel that this book does the same thing. It's like, wow, we have a lot to be grateful for. And these people are superheroes. Every single one of these guys should have some form of cape given to them at the finish line, because that's what they are to us, to themselves.
And I had too, Kris, my collaboration with Lee Gruenfeld, his wife Cherise won her age group in Kona 13 times, going for number 14 this year. So he dear friend for 20 some years, and if I threw down 1,500, 2,000 words, he came back with an extra 500 to it, and I go, oh my gosh. He goes, I know your voice. I know what you want to say. So write it to me. And it just became, going back and forth with him just became one of the best things ever, because we were able to put on the paper exactly what I meant, what I would write and say, and he would come back with, no, I don't know if that's right. And I go, you're right. I wouldn't say that. Why'd I write that down? Because you're trying to be a writer, so you just be you. Just be that's his guidance was amazing. Just be you. Tell me your story. Write down your story. And that's how this whole thing came about.
Yeah. One of the things that I found that is extremely fulfilling to me, I've been in the industry for like over 20 years now, but since I started putting out what's called video trainers, these daily video trainers, so I'll help someone, lose body fat, put on muscle, transform, and the one that I did leading up to the Ironman was called Man of Iron, where that was being documented every day and being published on bodybuilding.com, and it's free on YouTube there. So what I have found now every time that I go to an expo, and what's even more fulfilling is not only the people saying, hey, I transformed because of you, or I lost a couple £100, or I competed on a bodybuilding stage, is when people come up with that Ironman medal to say, I saw your story, I was into bodybuilding, I didn't think both worlds could live in harmony, but I did it, and here's my medal. And that person couldn't have cheated his way over that finish line. No. There's no way, because a lot of people can jump up on a bodybuilding stage and say, hey, I'm a bodybuilder. Even though they really may not look like a bodybuilder, you have to put into the work to complete an Ironman. So I find that extremely fulfilling. But what I find really inspiring about this is that there aren't many sports like football or whatever that we think, when I'm in my 70s or 80s, I could do that.
Yeah.
Or even further, So when I read Sister Madonna's book, the Iron Nun, I was like, This is extremely inspiring, especially when I did a couple of these Ironman events now, and I've had people double my age just passing me by. I'm like, wow, that inspires me so much. What is it do you think about, because it's hard, running, on these knees, on the hips, is pretty hard on the body. What do you think is it about Ironman that allows people to compete at an older age and still cross that finish line before cutoff time?
I think the discipline of the cross training between swimming, cycling, and running is fantastic for someone who's getting a little older. I've got those marathon days behind me where I used to run 100-mile weeks, and I all of a sudden got to my 40s and go, oh my gosh, I'm beat up. And I was doing triathlon too, but the running was taking over. And all of a sudden when you started, it's like life. If you balance everything, life is a little bit better. If you balance your training, it's the same thing. I've actually had older athletes say to me, you know what? Doing an Ironman is easier than running a marathon by itself. I go, what? He goes, I'm telling you, it's easier on the body. You're not as beat up. And so I think that's what it is, Kris. It's that cross-training type thing where you can swim one day, bike the other, run next, and have the body recover in different ways. You're using everything, not just your hips, your knees, and your ankles, and you're pounding on the pavement. And it's funny when you mentioned that earlier of, you, Kris Gethin, you broke down some barriers. I don't know. I don't think I ever told you this. I saw you in town before the race, walking around with the civil, and I go, well, that dude ain't doing the race. But here I've been around for how long? And I knew you were a bodybuilder, and then saw you in the morning in the wetsuit. I go, you got to be kidding me. And so I looked you up during the day, and I go, oh my gosh, this dude, he's going to break down. If he finishes, he's going to break down barriers. And you did. When I got to bring you in as an Ironman, then meet you the next day and talk to you. You two are, two of the sweetest people I've ever met. And we all have these, misconceptions of people from the outside cover. And you broke down that barrier. And I think it's, if people come up to you and they've been in the weightlifting business or, all they want to do is look good in a mirror, you change that, sure, we all want to look in the mirror, but you change that conception of, you know what, you can do this. And you can be a full athlete. You can be a bodybuilder. You can be an Ironman. You can go out and do workouts on the track and sprints, with your doggone parachute. You can do that stuff. So I commend you for breaking down those barriers. As a matter of fact, I've showed your picture to people and go, hey, he's a buddy of mine and he's done Ironman. They'd look at me and they'd say BS. I go, I'm telling you, he's an Ironman athlete. Oh my God. So I've never judged a book by its cover, but when it comes to your mass and of doing an Ironman, it just really hadn't been done before. And you broke down one hell of a barrier, young man.
Well, thank you very much. I tell you what, I'm absolutely honored to hear that coming from yourself, Mike. And the reason why I wanted to do that is because I've always been a kind of person that does cardio a couple of times a day anyway, because it's therapeutic to me. Interrupting this show to make a quick cup of coffee using Laird's Superfood Creamer. Now, if you've been following my socials over the last couple of years, you'll see that I've been using this product, which has really changed my coffee game completely. If I go to a coffee shop and ask them for an Americano or something, which is usually rather boring and bland, and I add some of this Laird Superfood Creamer, it completely changes the taste profile, but it's healthy. And what I like about this company is that it was started by big wave surfer legend Laird Hamilton, who I actually interviewed on his podcast some weeks ago, and I'll put a link to that show in the show notes. And he explained that the company started over a cup of coffee that he shared with his friends because he wanted them to drink the healthiest cup of coffee out there, and they absolutely loved it. So then what started out of a very authentic way of sharing this, it turned into a business. And just take a look at the ingredients. Laird Superfood products are made using only the highest quality, all-natural, whole food ingredients. They don't use any extracts, fillers, gums, synthetic vitamins, artificial flavors, or lab-made ingredients, which makes it my go-to for every coffee that I have. If you want to try Lead Superfood Creamer for yourself, use the code GETHIN20 to receive 20% off your first purchase. Just your first purchase, and make sure it's a big one. All you got to do is go to leadsuperfood.com, and again, I will put that link in the show notes. But until then, let's get back into the show. Life would be a white knuckle ride without some form of activity and exercise and therapeutic value. So when people would often say, you know, oh, you shouldn't do cardio every day, you're going to lose your muscle mass. You know, I would always turn to them and say, well, look, this is why it's good for you. It helps the blood flow around the body. And number one, what is the most important muscle that we have? It isn't our biceps or our pecs that's going to get us to 100 years old. It's our heart. You know, we got to look after that bad boy. In bodybuilding, unfortunately, I see it can be extremely unhealthy. People have body dysmorphia. You know, they diet really hard and they have this terrible relationship with food, and they're constantly indoors, you know, training in the gym, and then sit at home and do nothing, and then maybe do 20 minutes of cardio on a Stairmaster. I'm like, get outside in the hills, get some vitamin D, get some restorative red light. And you know, listen to the birds, smell the air, get out there. And I think it's a big component that's missing. So I thought, well, you know what? I'm going to go to the extreme and go to the lab beforehand and show people that this is my muscle mass, this is the density, this is my lactate threshold, this is my FTP, and we'll do it in 6 months' time and see where we go. So the proof was in the pudding that you didn't have to lose muscle. Right. Can we eat and supplement like the usual, or train like the usual triathlete? Well, no. You know, we have to make some adjustments here, and we're going to have to eat and supplement a little bit more like a bodybuilder. However, it can be done. And, you know, I'm so glad that I did it, you know, because it has open opportunities for other people who would like maybe were doing triathlon, but they got into bodybuilding and thought, okay, well, I'm going to have to leave that behind now. But now they've returned to that first love, which is absolutely phenomenal. It's great to see more and more people do it, because you get so much more out of participating in an event like that than I think what meets the eye, because the camaraderie at those events are unmatched. You know, I've never seen it in any other sport. Like, I competed in motocross for about 12 years. So of course I knew David Bailey's story when you read about his. And then I raced downhill mountain biking and then bodybuilding. But the camaraderie and the social pipeline that you plug into through Ironman is just phenomenal. And you can get, you know, as you've experienced more than anyone, just lifelong friends of real, genuine people that want to serve their purpose.
Yeah, you know, it's interesting because I even wrote about it. It's, you know, you go to Kona to the World Championship, and there's 80 countries represented. Think about that, 80 countries represented. It's in for a one-day event, so everybody's in town all week long, and I've never seen any rancor or enmity rear its ugly head of anybody. If, you know, the shared purpose of going that 140.6 miles in the World Championship, it just pulls everybody together as one. You know, if the world was that, there'd be no war. There'd absolutely be no war. And I've actually, you know, said quite a few times that Ironman is like life. And sometimes people come back at me, Reilly, geez, you're getting pretty, you know, high level there. You know, Ironman's a race and da-da-da. But when I wrote this book, I go, it is life. It's life-changing. It's not about that finish line. It's about who you become. And people become someone else when they cross that finish line. And so that shared purpose of that family, of that, whether you're that, you know, 8-hour professional finisher, and they come back the last couple hours of the race, put medals on the 15 and 16 and 17-hour people, and to look at the all in the pros' faces, putting a medal on the 72-year-old woman they just finished, it's priceless. No matter if that woman's from the USA, from Japan, from the Soviet Union, or from Australia, it's priceless. So it's I wish everybody could see this world from my eyes, and so that's why I put the book together. Hope some people are going to be able to see it from my eyes, but also from your eyes. and every age grouper that's ever crossed the finish line. See it from their eyes, and that's at the end of the book. That's who I dedicated it to, all the age groupers that gave me the honor of being able to call them an Ironman.
Yeah, and that's what the phenomenal thing about the sport, isn't it, Mike? That the age groupers get to race with the professionals on the same track on the same day. You know, how many other sports can you say that? There aren't many.
Hey, the course in Ireland, you know, Coeur d'Alene on the run course, that wasn't a 2-lap run, was it? No,
yes.
You were.
Yeah,
it was a 2-lap
in the
run.
full, yes.
Through town. Well, in Ireland next weekend, it's a 4-lap run course around the smaller town in Ireland. And I started thinking about it. I go, everybody's going to be seeing everybody waving. You see the pros. It's going to be like a family affair of a 10K on a 4-lap course. So I can't wait to see that.
Yeah, that'll be phenomenal. I was actually in Ireland about a year ago when it was just announced that the event was going to be held there, and I happened to be there at the same time, and I think it was announced like the day later. And that's going to be a phenomenal countryside for people to race through. It'll be a spectacular event. And I will actually be going to watch my first Ironman, which will be the Coeur d'Alene 70.3, because I'm going to be up there for somebody's 70th birthday, which is phenomenal. It just happens to be in Coeur d'Alene over the same weekend. So I'll watch my first, and then I really, really hope to get to Kona and witness that event, because as you mentioned, I guess that is the one of the year that you've got to watch.
You won't even believe it. You'll come up to me afterwards and go, "Why didn't I come earlier?" It is just, I love it when newbies come to Kona, and I can be around them and just watching the awe of what they are seeing and feeling and experiencing. And then race day, the greatest event on earth, happening and unfolding right before your eyes. It's a magical place.
Yeah, I bet. So let me ask you, Mike, I'm sure you get a lot of people, as I do within my industry, that may be in their 60s or 70s, that say, oh, I'm too old to start exercising, or I'm too old to start working out, or I'm too old to participate in a triathlon. What advice do you give to those people and the listeners that are in the same position right now, saying the same thing to themselves?
Well, I say to people, say some guy's 60 years old, I'm too old to get started to do this. Did you say that about yourself when you were 30? Well, no, I was 30. Did you start this? No, I didn't. So start it now. Watch what happens. You'll have a transformation. You know, and like I say, if you decide to just start running around the block and start doing something, the rest will happen. It'll come around. It's going to hurt at first. It's tough. You get good advice. There's a lot of tri clubs. There's a lot of coaching. But you can't believe how many people I bring into the finish line at 50 years old or 60, especially 60 to 69, where it's their first Ironman. I mean, tons of them. At Ironman Boulder just 2 weeks ago, I had 132 athletes in the race, 60 years and older.
Wow.
So, and probably a third of them were doing their first Ironman. So that's why you see Cody McClaslin's picture in my book of our little buddy who's got a prosthetics on both legs running, and I put on the picture, excuses are invalid. I don't want to hear it. And you don't want to say it to yourself. So, you didn't say it at 30, but you didn't do it. So do it at 60 and don't say it.
Yeah, exactly. Just do it. Because I think a lot of people, they manifest their own reality by saying that constantly, am I too old? And they answer their own question as opposed to just getting out there and applying it. And like you said, you have to get comfortable being uncomfortable, because there's no way around it. It will be uncomfortable, but you're not going to die. It's like people don't want to go out and train in the rain. I'm like, your skin's waterproof. You'll be fine. You will be okay. So I encourage people that are listening, get out there and try to be someone that's harder to kill. Because in this day and age, unfortunately, we've become pretty easy to kill. So I try to encourage people, get out there. When it's raining, lace up and go out there for a run. If it's cold, it's snowing, warm up a little bit more, wrap up a little bit more, get out there and do the same thing. You'll be fine. Because when you come back into that dry, warm house, man, you appreciate things so much more.
I know. I was on a ride this winter, and we had a lot of rain in Southern California. You had quite a bit up there. It's just one of those. I never if it's raining, I won't go out on my bike just because of a safety factor. But I went out and I was about 45 minutes and it starts raining. I go, okay, I'm 45. I got to do a loop here. And I started kind of talking to myself. How can I get myself back home? And it wasn't raining really hard, but it was raining. So I stopped at a stoplight and cars were next to me. And guy rolls down his window and he says, dude, you're a stud. This is great. Like I started out in the rain. I go, oh, hey, thanks a lot. That was okay. That pumped me out. I go, I can do this. I can ride in the rain. And I became like this little boy at a playground playing in the rain. I just, stay safe, not to fall. But I was having the time of my life. I got back home. I was drenched. I got in that shower. It was the best shower I had all year. You're right. It's just, you accept it. You change your attitude about it. And I just became this little boy out there again. It was fantastic.
Yeah, it's awesome. Like, it's one of the things that I do if I'm home in Wales at winter. Myself and my father will generally climb up Snowdon, which is the highest mountain peak in Wales. And, winter in Wales, not too nice. But the thing is, like you said, you appreciate, you may hate it at the time, you will question yourself. Why am I doing this? What a stupid idea. And I'm sure my father's saying the same thing. But we're not going to admit it. But then when you get back to the pub or to the Airbnb, wherever you're staying, it's like, wow, that was so worth it. Let's do it again.
Nothing like braving the elements. We got a brave life. You might as well brave the elements.
Yeah, exactly. So what got you into Ironman Event? I know the story, but I want the listeners to know, what did you start off by calling? Had you come from an announcing background, or had you come from a triathlete background?
Well, I was always in the endurance sports business. My brother and I had running shoe stores in San Diego. We sold those, and I became a rep, repping running shoe lines and energy bars and things like that. So I was always involved in this business. And then, a race director asked me to get on the microphone because I wasn't running the race. My hamstring was beat up. So I did, and it was great. It was like, God, I was calling people across and making half fun of my friends. I remember one guy, I go, hey, next time train for this. He looked, he goes, what the hell? What are you doing on the microphone? So it just kind of morphed into me doing a lot of running races in Southern California. And then and triathlons, and I enjoyed it. I always loved public speaking, and I went to Toastmasters every week, and it just was who I am. I just kind of like that stuff. So then in '89, I got the call to come to Kona. It was like getting called up to the big leagues, baby. It wasn't single A ball anymore. It was big time.
And what a year to do it.
Yeah, and then I knew Mark and Dave, and I knew Mark much better, and Paula, and because they all lived and trained in San Diego, and I do rides with them and runs. So it was like being able to go over there with them, because I was always jealous when they would leave and I wouldn't be able to go. Between you and me, I'd have done it for nothing, but they offered me some money on top of it, and I go, oh my gosh, and I get to go to Hawaii? You give me a free room and a rental car? Are you kidding me? So it just kind of worked itself into. And I was actually quasi training for that year to do Ironman Hawaii. All you had to do was just sign up and go. So, I was in great shape. But when that call came, I said, well, I can always do it. Well, this will be 31 years in a row on the microphone in Kona, so I haven't done one yet. But I've had a lot of 19-hour days under my belt, that's for sure.
Yeah, I noticed on your Instagram you're out there. Out on the bike on Father's Day as well. So, like, whenever you're not out there traveling and you're home for a weekend, are you still training?
Oh yeah, I always. I did a great yoga class this morning because I'm jumping on that long flight to Ireland, so I want to make sure the body, it's all. I'm not 35 anymore, so you just got to keep things going. And I love riding. That's my passion. I'm battling a hip right now that I think is probably going to be replaced in December. But I'm working through it. So the running's a little tougher. But yeah, I just have always stayed in shape. I'll have buddies who are training for the race, or when my son trained for it, I get out there and I'm training with him, and I go, this is the greatest. I get to train, be in shape, and I don't have to race. I don't have the stress of race day. They go, yeah, you get to train like you're racing. You don't race. I go, well, I go there and work, so don't give me a hard time, So. It's worked out fantastic.
Maybe look into, for your hip, Mike, maybe look into stem cell therapy as well. Like I had stem cell earlier this year, and I had both my knees done. I do it for longevity purposes as well, and preventative purposes, because I know I'm not going to slow down anytime soon. I'm going to go out there and work the knees and their hips and elbows and shoulders. It's been fantastic, touch wood. It's been very, very good for me. And I know people, wherever, it depends what the issue is, isn't it? If it's cartilage, or as long as it's got a blood supply, stem cells are phenomenal for it, dependent on where you go as well. So maybe something for the future. So in your book, you've obviously got a vast array of stories in there. There's stories from all sorts of backgrounds. You talk about obviously David Bailey and the Iron War between Mark and Dave, and you've got some phenomenal stories from age groupers as well. Is there a single story in that book? I know that would be hard. That was the most inspiring for you to write.
Well, I go to this story. It was inspiring to write, but it was an honor to put it down. And it's a story about Grace McDonald. And when I met this little kindergartner with her mom and dad, her dad was doing the race, and her brother Jack, older brother Jack, I was just enamored by her because she was a kindergartner speaking to me like she was an 8th grader with a great vocabulary, looked me in the eye, shook my hand. I even said to Mom, I go, whoa, what? She's something else. She goes, oh yeah, she's a handful. So it just was great meeting her. And a lot of people know the story, but we lost Grace in a terrible way. And so writing that story was very hard, very humbling, but inspiring. I think about it now, and I have a great relationship with the family. We have dinner together every year in Lake Placid because Dad still does the race every year. So that story was a tough one to write, a tough one to read in my audiobook to get through that. But I did, and people say the same thing to me. I think I heard about that story, but when you told it, oh my gosh, I had no idea. And then the other one is the best call I ever made. And I've called almost 300,000 people in Ironman at a finish line. And there's one that stands above them all. And so I wrote a chapter about that. I'm not going to tell you who it is, on the air here, but you read it, Kris, you know who it is. And it was something else to be, but I didn't think about writing that until halfway through the book. I go, I've got my best call. I'm going to write about my best call. And people I will say to me, what was your best call? I go, it's in the book. No, tell me, what was your best call? It had to be Mark or this athlete or Chrissy Wellington or this age group or that. No, you're going to have to read the book. So I do have in there my best call ever. That was a great chapter to write, recollecting that part of my memory.
Yeah. Okay, so we will put the link in the show notes because I'm sure there's a lot of people out there that want to read that or listen to it through the audio version. So please go to the show notes and you'll see the link where you can purchase Finding My Voice. About Dave Scott and Mark Allen, I'm sure you get asked this all the time, but it's such an inspiring story for me, myself, just seeing the competitive nature in two people who are already at the pinnacle of their sport and then just took it another level. Do you think we will ever see a race like that again?
I certainly hope so. I really do. I was in Australia when Peter Reid and Kris Lee were pounding on in towards the finish line. Peter's from Canada and Kris, and they were together all day. And but Kris broke a little further from the finish line, and but I hope we do. We could this year in Kona. And there's 3 Germans out there that are doing very well: Jan Frodeno, Sebastian Kienle, and our 2-time world champion Patrick Lange. And it's going to happen. And it may happen on the women's side before it does the men's, but it's going to happen because everybody's figuring everybody out. But things happen on a course over 140.6 miles. You can feel like a king and queen, all the way to 20 miles into the run, and then the wheels fall off. It's just what that race does. And remember, these guys and gals are going they're going full out. It's just it's full out. So yeah, I was honored to be able to see that duel between the clash of the two titans, as I called them in the book, and honored to be able to bring them in. But I hope we do. The sport would love to have something like that happen again, and even the pros, they'd want to be involved in that. They wouldn't want to be in third place knowing there's two people up front battling it out. They'd want to be in the mix. So
yeah.
I hope it happens again. It will.
Well, so when you say it may happen in the women's beforehand, are you thinking Daniela Ryf and Lucy Charles?
That's exactly what I'm thinking. And you also have dark horses in there. Miranda Carfree coming back. Even Heather Jackson, the American, can put together a day. Daniela right now seems invincible, as Chrissy did, as Craig Alexander did, as Paula Newby-Fraser did. But eventually someone figures it out. But the talent now, especially younger, usually pros didn't find themselves until they were, 31, 32, 33. But now you got Lucy Charles at, I think, 24, and Daniela under 30. They're figuring it out early on the nutrition, on the training, on the rest, everything, and mentally, because you have to be a mental giant to win that race. I'm talking push yourself through things that, and on race day, they have to push themselves through things that didn't happen in training. Sure, they can beat themselves up and crawl home in a training, but when you've got the mental pressure of that target on your back like that Daniela has, you got to be a mental giant. You've got to be something that I don't know if I could ever get to. I would like to think I could, but they are special.
Well, and what is it about Kona that really separates that event over everyone else, where you'll see the favorites and so many people's preparation seems to be on point? And we saw it last year, where one of the favorites just ends up like in 30th place. What is it about Kona that does that to people?
Well, I think the training obviously is intensified, and the lead up to the race with, having to do interviews and talk to people and be social, and you get to the island and it happens again. And I say Ironman, the World Championship's got a big pull on you. It's like when I go to announce, I've got all week long. It's like my rest day is race day. Wow, okay, here the cannon went off. Now leave me alone. This is good. And there's a lot of pull and mental pull all week long of things happening, and the pros feel it the worst. They've got to go to this sponsor, this party, this thing, and so many people come to Kona, and all of a sudden they get sick a week before the race because they're just so intensified and mentally drained and physically drained. So you have to really put together one heck of a combination with the mind, body, spirit to succeed in Kona. You just have to.
How do you think Lionel Sanders will do this year there?
I think he's going to come and he's going to compete. Will he have the race he had and finish in second place? I don't know. Through the years, Kris, I've never ever made a prediction on the race, and I never will. People ask me, who do you think's going to win? I don't do that. My champions are the ones coming at me. So if Lionel's in the lead and coming down the lead drive, that was my prediction. That's my champion for the day. That's who I take care of. I don't want to put something in my head that would have me do a lesser of a job or disappoint me. And I'm happy for everybody that comes across that line. So if Lionel pulls it off and does it, fantastic. If Daniela does it again, she's our champion, and I'll tell the world that. If a new men's champion comes across that line, let's bring him in. And so I look at everybody and go, everybody is prepared. So it's anybody's ball game. Yeah. That's my prediction. It's anybody's game.
Yeah, it's very unpredictable. There's so many different things that can come into the factor, like whether it be the elements, whether it be a technical issue or breakdown, or like you said, they just hit that wall, which can happen like just a couple of miles from the finish line. You just don't know. Was there hydration there? Was their nutrition intact? Did they lose their nutrition like we saw Lucy Charles did last year? Luckily, it didn't affect her, but anything can happen out there. Now, where, to the people that are listening right now that have thought, well, should I do an Ironman triathlon? Should I participate in one of these events? Is this for me? Because, I know what you can get out of the sport. There's no doubt about it. And from reading your book, you can see how it can affect so many people's lives forever. What do you say to the people who are thinking about dabbling their feet into triathlon?
I say you got to do it. There's so many smaller sprint distances you can do. And then, if you get yourself connected with a tri club or a good coach, it's an easier process than you can imagine. It really is. And the thing about it is once you swim and start some swimming workouts, and then you get on a bike and you start riding, then you start running, you're going to feel something that you've never felt before. You're going to feel like you can almost accomplish anything. Then you start putting those workouts together on the same day or consecutive days, and wow, I can do this. Because I've seen it thousands of times. People come up to me and go, I never in a million years thought I would ever be a triathlete. And I had a woman come up and tell me that at Ironman Texas. I brought her in around 16 and a half hours. She gave me this big hug. I saw her the next day, and she came up. She goes, I need to tell you something. I go, what's that? She goes, I never in a million years thought I would ever be a triathlete. I made the decision 4 years ago just to do a little triathlon because I had friends doing it. And here I'm an Ironman now. She was in awe of herself, as she should have been. And 4 years in the span of our lives for her to do that was a short period of time, because that Ironman finish line came at her much quicker than probably she ever imagined. But what she did, she just put her toe in the water. She clipped into a pedal. She ran around the block. She got on the track, and she did it. So I say you got to do it. You got to give yourself, even if you only do one, at least you did it. Yeah. I say that because I know what's going to happen if you do one.
Yeah.
There's so many smaller, distances, ones they can do. You know that, Kris. They can do that.
Yeah. If you start at that sprint, chances are it's your gateway drug that you had no idea that's just going to get you hooked onto the bigger events, and that's what I love about it. Triathlon is such an amazing sport, but when so many people get it mixed up and say, hey, you competed in a triathlon, didn't you? I'm like, no. It was an Ironman. Let's just get that straight.
Yeah.
They don't know the difference, but I do. Right. Okay. Well, thank you ever so much for this opportunity to speak to you, Mike. It's been an absolute pleasure. And the book that for all my viewers, if you're on YouTube here, you can see right here, Mike Reilly, is called Finding My Voice. And
MikeReilly.net. You can go to that.
MikeReilly.net. Okay, and we will put the link to the show notes. In what formats do you have this currently, Mike?
It's in the hardback. It's in a soft cover. It's got it out in ebook and also the audiobook. So Ironman.com is selling the book, and they sell it at all their merchandise stores. And the ones I'm at, I'm signing them at the stores. Amazon, BarnesandNoble.com has it. And the audiobook's on audible.com. So it's everywhere. But if you go to my website, I have all the outlets where you can buy the book, and you can see it, MikeReilly.net.
Okay. Do people ever have the opportunity to get a signed copy from you online as well, or they have to come and find you?
Yes, as a matter of fact, thanks for asking. You can, my website, you can send me an email to mike@mikereilly.net, and I have an address you can mail the book to, and with a self-addressed envelope. And I'll sign it however you want me to sign it and send it back to them. I've got 4 or 5 here I've got to sign and get back out today. So they're coming in every day. So it's nice to see. And obviously, if I'm at upcoming Ironman race that I'm at, I'll be signing it. I'll be signing books in Ireland. So.
Okay, awesome. So make sure to check you out on the website, see where you're at, and get yourself, like I've got, a signed copy right here. There you go, baby. So that's why it's going to be very precious to me. So thank you very much for your time, and safe travels, Mike. Let's stay in touch. And
that's precious to me too. So we got
there you go.
Both ways right there, baby.
There you go, man of iron, baby.
There we go.
There you go. Awesome. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. All right. Well, you take care of yourself. Safe travels. You'll be in Ireland. I'll be heading up to Coeur d'Alene, and I'm sure we'll have a great old time at our respective Ironman events.
All right, my friend. Thank you very much, and much aloha to you.
All right, aloha. Thank you.